Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the broadcast. My name is Justice Knight, today filling in for Lisa Haven, and not so fast. We did a deep dive into this entire China balloon story, and there appears to be several things that, well, simply don't add up. That's what we're going to cover for you here today. Now we've seen high-resolution photos. This is the best I've found of what the balloon looks like, along with the apparatus underneath, which will take center focus as we move through this story. Another high-resolution photo, and of course, we now have the tape, and I'm just going to lower the volume down here, of it being shot down. But it is this very tape which went to beg a whole ton of questions, and those questions are what we're going to cover, because the story's taken many twists throughout the entire narrative, but there was one overriding question I'm sure you had, and we did also. The question was, why wasn't Chinese balloon shot down before it entered U.S. airspace? And you see the Pentagon's made several mistakes in the information that they're going ahead and giving their sound bites on, and so did Biden. And I'm going to show you that very mistake that they made here very quickly. It all starts on January 28th. What? Yeah, that's actually when this began. Maybe slightly before that, but it's hard to track through, so we're going to stay with the dates we can validate. As it turns out, U.S. authorities were well aware of the unidentified object that had entered American airspace on January 28th. So we're going to set that as our start date, because this is where the story goes completely awry. Of course it does. And when did the story start on the map? Well, you see it there, just off the coast of Alaska. Number 2 on this diagram, the balloon's journey. The balloon entered American airspace, flying in around, again, January 28th, the southern tip of Alaska. It then crossed north of the Aleutian Islands and over the state's mainland. At this point, U.S. officials had not publicly acknowledged the balloon or its presence in the United States. Now, they take several more days to do that. Days valuable to U.S. security, but days nonetheless, they just simply let go. Chinese spy balloon tracker raises questions about why it wasn't shot down. Of course it does, because it's this portion of the map. The alleged track it took, there's been multiple maps published on it, but the timeline would remain the same. If we were just to take when it entered into U.S. airspace, we can go to another map, U.S. maritime limits and boundaries. We'll zoom in just a bit on Alaska. I think it's important that we all understand where these borders are and how much time the U.S. military and the executive office had to react. So just zooming back out, there's Alaska. You see the blue lines, where would be our space, and how long it was there before it hit the Canadian border, which is going to be our next graphic. We're still on number 2. January 28th, enters into Alaska, Alaskan airspace, U.S. airspace, let's call it, until it reached the border of Canada. That's the timeline we have to watch here. Monday, January 30th, the balloon entered Canadian airspace. Now, to me, to you, that's 2 days. Of course it is. 2 days that we had to react, but we didn't. No, we sat back. We were analyzing, right? Oh, just a portion of the story. Rockets us forward to January 31st. It re-entered American airspace over northern Idaho on Tuesday now. Remember when they first acknowledged that they knew about this? 1 day before it was spotted over Montana by civilians, because it appears they weren't going to tell us anything. Till civilians spotted it, then they decided, okay, now I'm going to tell you something. Wednesday, February 1st, the balloon flew over Montana, near Malmstrom Air Force Base, home to several missile silos. We know that story. It's irrelevant except for the portion of February 1st alerted by citizens. Going over, yes, very sensitive air bases, of which it could have been stopped a long time ago. That's the most important fundamental part of this story we're going to cover here today. We've heard Biden come out and say on Wednesday, I said, shoot that thing down. Well, Biden, actually it was decided the day before not to shoot it down. But we have to stay with the calendar, because Biden makes his announcement on Wednesday the 1st. The U.S. was aware of it on January 28th. Now, to me, that's 3 days now they had to react. 4th day, he announces he wants it shot down. But it was the conclusion of this story that begs the most questions. I'm not even going to go into Antony Blinken, some senior most official at the Chinese embassy. I'm not even going to go into the fact that he was going to go there and China was maybe testing our resolve. No, because I don't think that's where the storyline resides. The storyline stays on track. Statement from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Now, before I go into this, I got a huge favor to ask of you also. Just taking a brief pause. If you haven't subscribed to Lisa's channel, please make sure you do. If you haven't subscribed to mine, she'll put a link just above. If you haven't gone to Restricted Republic yet, again, that is audience-funded news. No sponsors, no backers, nobody steering the narrative but us. So if you want news, unfiltered, uncensored, get to restrictedrepublic.com today. Discount code FREEDOM 2 years for $5 a month plus 14 days for free. Get over to Restricted Republic. I promise you, we've turned things up over there, and it's going to hit a whole new level of success. We want you part of the family. But now, let's get back to this broadcast. So on Wednesday, President Biden gave his authorization to take down the surveillance balloon as soon as the mission could be accomplished without undue risk to American lives under the balloon's path in unpopulated areas. We've taken out satellites before over the U.S. They had 2 days, either over Alaskan waters or over Alaskan unpopulated areas. But no, there must be a reason. There must be a reason they chose not to shoot it down over places where people could potentially access the wreckage. Now, you see, out in the ocean, that's going to be a lot tougher, wouldn't it be? Well, it depends on what spin you take on this. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark, I won't even say his last name, insisted that such a move would put civilians at risk. Oh, would it? On Wednesday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken summoned some most senior official Chinese embassy in Washington. On Friday, he spoke by phone to China's Foreign Affairs Chief Wang Yi, warning both officials that the presence of the surveillance balloon that we chose not to stop, although we had multiple days to do so, that was flying over the most sensitive military bases we have, recording everything, we chose not to touch it. Thursday, February 2nd, U.S. officials disclosed to the public because it was caught on Wednesday on tape. Oh, thank you so much. But don't worry, commercial airlines are okay because that's the part of the story they want you focusing on. Ministry of Foreign Affairs out of China comes out. It's a civilian airship used for research, but then gets angry when we go ahead and shoot it down. I guess better late than never. Except it's the way we shot it down that really begs the biggest question. Been through the timeline now. Biden makes his announcement on the 1st. It's not shot down till Saturday the 4th. Remembering this all started on Saturday the 28th. 1 week later. 1 week later. From China to Big Sky, the balloon that unnerved the White House. This account of how a balloon burst diplomacy, just as Secretary of State Antony Blinken was set to travel to China and meet with President Xi Jinping, is based on conversations with several officials. Well, it's interesting what we get in those conversations. The U.S. aware on January 28th. Let's go back just one step, and re-entered North Idaho on Tuesday. But with such a high-profile trip at stake, we had to keep it on the down low. That was key. You sure? We're caught off guard from the 28th. Just going to keep reiterating these points as we close down this broadcast. U.S. officials who had spent hours debating whether Blinken should scrap a long-planned trip to Beijing finally felt they had no choice but to postpone the first high-level U.S. visit to China. Oh, that's the reason why we let it go and didn't blow it up until it was over water. Not accessible to anyone who could potentially get near the wreckage because they were worried that wreckage was just going to fall over everywhere, of course. Over Alaska for 2 days. Huh. You ready for the ending? Of course you are. The punchline. A suspected Chinese spy balloon's 8-day journey. Tuesday, January 31st, U.S. officials considered shooting it down. The Washington Post reported on this. On Tuesday, before, again, remember this, the President, Biden, decided that he wanted it down on Wednesday. No, they'd already decided. The military already decided a day before the seated President of the United States authorized his command, and they overrode him. Interesting, huh? It's a pretty big decision, but it's this footage. This high-resolution footage that if you take it frame by frame, it's going to beg a much bigger question. Right? You see no explosion, you just see a hit. I'm getting there. It re-entered America's airspace over northern Idaho on Tuesday. Just remember all the timelines here. Remember the statement on Wednesday, President Biden says, I want it down now. They already decided on Tuesday not to. They knew the 28th that it was already coming. 2 days they avoided it. 2 days. Whoever made these decisions, so Joe Biden knew the Chinese spy balloon was coming. He tried to hide it from the American people, let it fly across the entire country, got all the surveillance it needed before we finally end it back in the water again. And that was only because people begged. I'm not even going to touch the fact of what an EMP platform is. I'll do this on Restricted this week, so if you guys just tune in there, I'll give you it. Now, it was this photo for me that was the most telling as we go through the sequence of events. Because if you watch right there where that missile came in, man, that balloon's awfully big, isn't it? What I hear about the size of 2 mobile homes, maybe a little bit larger than that. But that's not what the missile hit now, is it? Now, it's pretty clear to me that that missile came in. You could see the trail. I'll even erase this off for you real quick just so you get a little bit better of a look. Look where the missile came in. And look what it struck. To me, that's pretty apparent that it actually hit the business end. The part that would be recording everything, the part we needed to analyze. We didn't really need to know how a balloon works. Seems to be the bigger target of it all. So, what's your opinion? Was that precise hit by the military? And they have the ability to make a precise hit, don't they? Balloon later explodes. But now this part right here, just go back into this real quick. Hide that off from you. This part right here. What's going to be retrievable is the question. Because that's exactly, again, where that missile came in and hit. Hide this away. Then it came down here. It never hit up here. And to me, they did that over water. They waited till it crossed the entire country. They held on, and then they struck the business end. After all that waiting, all that surveillance. What questions does that beg? I ask you, I can't wait to see in your comments. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.